The night she arrived at my ICU, she was 52 years old, no major medical history, pressing her hand against her chest and telling me her heart felt like it was trying to escape from her ribs. She had no idea why, but I did. The moment I looked at her history and saw that she had been sleeping just 3 to 4 hours a night for 5 months straight, everything made perfect sense. She didn't come in because of a disease. She came in because she thought sleep was optional, and her body finally decided to prove her wrong. And what scares me the most is not that this happened to her. What scares me is that right now, millions of people are doing the exact same thing she was doing, completely unaware that every single night they skip real sleep, they are quietly destroying themselves from the inside out. I've been an intensive care physician for years. I have stood at bedsides, I have watched monitors, I have had conversations with patients at 3 in the morning who never thought they'd end up in a place like that. And the number one thing I wish people understood, the thing that changes when I explain it, the thing that makes grown adults go completely silent and look at me with wide eyes is this. When you don't sleep, your brain doesn't just get tired. It activates a survival response that was designed for life-threatening danger, and it has absolutely no idea that you're just watching another episode of your favorite series. Your brain cannot tell the difference between genuine danger and sleep deprivation. It only knows one thing: something is wrong. And the moment it senses that, it floods your entire body with cortisol. Now, cortisol is not the villain here. It's actually a brilliant hormone designed to keep you alive in moments of real threat. The problem is that it was never designed to run continuously, night after night, week after week. When cortisol surges, your heart rate climbs. Your blood pressure rises. Your blood vessels tighten. Your body starts pumping blood harder and faster because it genuinely believes you might need to fight or run for your life. And here's where it gets dangerous. That process doesn't care that you're lying in bed with your eyes closed. It happens anyway. I have monitored patients in the ICU who are lying perfectly still, supposedly resting, and their heart rate is sitting above 100 beats per minute. Not because they're exercising, not because they're anxious in that moment, because they haven't slept properly in weeks and their entire hormonal system is stuck in emergency mode. A healthy resting heart rate is somewhere between 60 and 80 beats per minute. That's your heart working efficiently, doing its job without strain. But a sleep-deprived heart? It's working overtime every single hour of every single day. And a heart that works overtime doesn't just get tired. It starts making mistakes, electrical mistakes, rhythm mistakes, the kind of mistakes that show up on a monitor as an arrhythmia and send people racing into an emergency room in the middle of the night convinced they are dying. Because sometimes, when it gets bad enough, they are very close to it. You've probably heard that most heart attacks happen at night or in the early morning hours. That's not a coincidence. That is the body hitting its limit. If your heart is already beating too fast, already consuming more oxygen than it should, already straining against elevated blood pressure, and you add an inflamed coronary artery that has been silently narrowing over months of chronic stress, you have created the perfect storm. The heart demands more oxygen than the artery can deliver, and the muscle starts dying. That is a heart attack. And the terrifying part is that it doesn't announce itself with months of obvious warning signs. It announces itself with chest pain at 2 a.m. and a phone call that no family should ever have to receive. But your heart is not the only organ paying the price. Your blood vessels are taking hits every single night that you don't sleep properly. Think of your arteries as flexible, dynamic structures that expand and contract with every heartbeat. They're designed to handle normal pressure and bounce back with ease. Now imagine that every night, instead of receiving the hormonal signal to relax and recover, those arteries are being pressurized beyond their normal range, hour after hour. Over time, the walls of those arteries start to stiffen. They lose their elasticity, and as they stiffen, they become worse at managing pressure, which drives blood pressure even higher, which stiffens them further. It becomes a cycle that silently damages your brain, your kidneys, your heart, and your eyes before you ever feel a single symptom. The patients who sit in front of me with newly diagnosed hypertension and ask me where it came from. Sometimes the answer isn't genetics or diet or age. Sometimes the answer is years and years of nights that were never truly restful. And then there's what happens in your brain. This is the part that even my most skeptical patients find impossible to ignore. Your brain has a cleaning system. It is called the glymphatic system, and it operates almost exclusively during deep sleep. While you are in deep, restorative sleep, this system flushes out the metabolic waste products that accumulate in your brain throughout the day. Proteins that are toxic, byproducts of normal neural activity that, if allowed to build up, become the foundation for devastating neurological diseases. When you don't sleep deeply or when you don't sleep enough, the glymphatic system doesn't activate fully. The waste stays. The toxins accumulate day after day, week after week, month after month. Researchers have found strong links between chronic sleep deprivation and the early buildup of the very proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. This is not a distant theoretical risk. This is measurable. This is happening in real people who think they are simply a little tired and that coffee will fix it. The cognitive signs are already there if you know what to look for. The person who walks into a room and immediately forgets why. The person who reads the same paragraph 3 times and still can't retain it. The person who used to be sharp and decisive but now hesitates, doubts, loses their train of thought mid-sentence. That is not aging. That is a brain that has been running without adequate maintenance for too long and is starting to show the damage. And your immune system. I ask almost every patient who tells me they are constantly sick, constantly catching every cold that goes around, always feeling run down, always slow to recover. I ask them one question before I ask about diet or supplements or anything else. I ask them how they sleep, and the answer is almost always the same. Not well, not enough, not deeply. Your immune system is not passive. It does not simply defend you in real time. It prepares. It builds. It manufactures the proteins, the antibodies, the cellular weapons that protect you from infection and disease. And the vast majority of that preparation happens while you sleep. Cut the sleep and you cut the preparation time. Your defenses become thinner. Your response time becomes slower. The illnesses hit harder and last longer because your body is trying to fight with an army that was never fully equipped. People spend hundreds of dollars on supplements and vitamins and superfoods chasing immunity. But if the sleep isn't there, nothing else matters. The foundation is broken and everything you build on top of it is unstable. Now I want to talk about a specific group of people because they are in more danger than most of them realize, and too many of them have been told to just accept it. Women between the ages of 45 and 65. This is the group that sleeps the worst, statistically, and there is a biological reason for it. Menopause. As estrogen levels decline, sleep architecture changes. The ability to reach and maintain deep sleep becomes harder. Night awakenings become more frequent. Hot flashes pull women out of sleep multiple times per night. And because this coincides with a very common life stage, because it happens to so many women at once, there is a cultural tendency to treat it as normal. To shrug and say, this is just part of getting older. But here's what that framing is missing. Estrogen doesn't only affect reproductive function. Estrogen actively protects your blood vessels. It keeps them flexible and healthy. It contributes to a favorable cardiovascular environment. When estrogen drops, that protection drops with it. So when a woman in this age group is also sleeping poorly, she is facing two simultaneous threats. The chronic stress response from sleep deprivation driving up her cortisol, her heart rate, and her blood pressure, and the simultaneous loss of hormonal cardiovascular protection that used to buffer some of that damage. That double impact is why the woman I described at the beginning of this story ended up in my ICU that night. She wasn't unlucky. She wasn't weak. She was running on 4 hours of sleep a night, going through menopause, managing enormous stress, and nobody had ever sat her down and explained what that combination was doing to her body in real time. She told me, "Doctor, if I had known this, I would have taken my sleep so much more seriously." And that conversation is why I'm here. That conversation is why I make content. Because the information exists. The science is clear. The warning signs are visible long before the crisis hits. But people are not hearing it in language they can absorb and act on. So let me give you those warning signs right now, not as a checklist, but as a picture of what chronic sleep deprivation actually looks and feels like from the inside. Your heart feels strange at rest. A fluttering, a racing, a pounding that doesn't seem connected to any physical activity. You check your pulse and it's sitting above 90, maybe above 100, while you're doing absolutely nothing. Your blood pressure readings, even at home, even when you're supposedly relaxed, keep coming back elevated. You feel mentally foggy in a way that doesn't fully clear even after a full cup of coffee. You are getting sick more often and recovering more slowly. You feel tired in a way that sleep, when you do get it, never seems to fully fix. That last one is important. When the deprivation has been going on long enough, even a full night of sleep stops feeling restorative. The debt has grown too large. The damage has layered too deeply. And this is the moment where people often make the worst decision, which is to tell themselves that this is just how they are now, that they're someone who doesn't sleep well, that they've always been this way and they've been fine. I have seen what fine eventually turns into. And I want you to understand something fundamental about the way your body handles chronic stress. It adapts. But adaptation is not the same as healing. A body that has adapted to running on too little sleep is a body with a consistently elevated heart rate, consistently elevated blood pressure, slightly elevated blood sugar, and an immune system that is doing its best but never doing enough. That body looks functional from the outside. It goes to work, it makes dinner, it answers emails, and then one day, without what feels like adequate warning, it fails. Not because it was weak, because it was strong enough to compensate for too long and then ran out of capacity to compensate any further. Your body is not an engine with an infinite tolerance for abuse. It has a limit, and the gap between where most sleep-deprived people are living right now and that limit is smaller than they think. So what do I want you to walk away with tonight? Not fear, not anxiety, not a new thing to lie awake worrying about. I want you to walk away with clarity. Sleep is not laziness. Sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is not something you earn by finishing your to-do list. Sleep is the biological maintenance window that keeps every system in your body running the way it was designed to run. Your heart needs it to regulate its rhythm. Your blood vessels need it to stay elastic and healthy. Your brain needs it to flush its waste and consolidate your memories. Your immune system needs it to build and refresh its defenses. And when you consistently take that window away, you are not being productive. You are borrowing against your own health with an interest rate you have not been told about and a payment due date you cannot predict. I am a physician who has held the hands of patients who had no idea how close they were to the edge until they were already falling. I'm telling you this because I want you to make different decisions while you still have the full range of options available to you. Talk to your doctor if you are struggling with sleep. Address the stress. Address the hormonal factors if you're in that life stage. Protect the hours that give your body a chance to do what it was built to do. And if you're already experiencing those warning signs, the racing heart, the elevated pressure, the brain fog, the constant illness, please don't wait. Those are not signs to manage. Those are signs to act on. Share this with someone you care about who you know isn't sleeping enough. Because sometimes all it takes is finally hearing it explained in a way that makes it real. That's what happened for my patient that night. And she walked out of the ICU a week later with a new understanding of what her body had been trying to tell her all along.